In June, Blair and I brought the kids on vacation to New York for a few days as a brief stop on our way to Israel. We visited the Tenement Museum, took a tour of the Eldridge Street Synagogue, saw a Yankee game, brought the kids to see the musical Chicago on Broadway. Consequently, we had to explain Chicago to our children. And then we all headed to the airport for a 10-hour flight to Israel on El Al. Miraculously, we arrived at JFK Airport Terminal 4 early. And Blair took the kids to buy some snacks for the long flight. I decided to stretch my legs and walk up and back down the long hallway. As I headed back, I heard the chime over the loudspeaker, which is intended to notify us about an important announcement. Ding, ding, ding. Aloha, everyone. I turned to my left, and directly across from the El Al gate to Israel is an American Airlines flight to Honolulu. At the microphone is the most pleasant-looking young woman wearing a lei. Aloha. We're about to depart on our journey to Hawaii, the island of Oahu. I look at the New York crowd at the gate and I can taste a recipe of excitement and relaxation. They're headed to Hawaii. Some are already dressed in Hawaiian shirts and they're wearing flip-flops. All their shoulders have already relaxed. The woman at the desk continued, "Please form a single file line and we'll begin our boarding process soon. Mahalo." There on my left, I watched New Yorkers, calmly and politely just float with a sense of calm and serenity to form a single file line and patiently wait to board their jetliner to paradise. Then I heard the chimes over the loudspeaker. Ding, ding, ding. A deep, gravelly voice begins. Even in the inaudible vocality, I could feel Israel getting closer to me. Rabbanan v'rabotai, welcome to El Al. Without even waiting for the end of the announcement, families of all kinds, New York Haredim, Los Angeles Ashkenazim, New Jersey Persians, Israeli Sephardim, some of us with 3 children, some of us with 10 children, all took 5 or 6 steps closer into the security guards and began to crowd the security station as if we'd never heard of a line before. I glanced back at the tranquil boarding of the flight to Hawaii. And then I gazed at the chaos of my people. And the stark juxtaposition hit me. Hawaii or Israel? Granted, I already had a ticket, but seeing the behavior of these 2 groups of people, with whom did I want to spend the next 10 hours of my life? Here before us all is the choice between 2 very different kinds of journeys. On the left is a choice of calm and comfort and relaxation. And on the right is active and challenging and familial. In looking at those 2 scenes, I realized that we all stand at the fork in the road often, forced to choose between different kinds of journeys, or perhaps different kinds of Saturday mornings. At that moment, it hit me that part of my job as a rabbi today is advocating for all of you to choose the journey on the right. Now, before I continue, I have to admit, out of a sense of transparency, that in fact, I love Hawaii. As a matter of fact, outside of Israel, if you ask my kids where I would choose to be, they would tell you the Aulani Hotel, the Disney Resort in Hawaii. After reading an early draft of this sermon, My wife, in complete panic, made me promise that we would visit Hawaii again, that this sermon would not write Hawaii off for our family. This isn't a disparaging talk about Hawaii or Cancun or Cabo or any of the other places we go on vacation. So please don't email me and justify your next vacation to Club Med as soon as Yontif is over. That's not what the point of this talk is. As much as I'd like to stand here this morning and advocate for visiting Israel, as much as I'd love to lead a Valley Beth Shalom family trip to Israel soon, as much as I advocate for Israel and support her with every fiber of my being, every hour of every day, I really want to spend my time with you today reflecting on our collective spiritual journey forward. We face a more profound dilemma than where we go on vacation. The choice before all of us is whether we reach for comfort and relaxation or whether we reach for meaning. Why do we take our families to Israel? To craft our identity, to reconnect with our purpose, to rediscover meaning. A journey to Israel is just as much a journey inward as it is a journey abroad. If meaning is the end goal we desire, then a sense of vulnerability before chaos is the cost, is the price we have to pay to get there. Judaism encourages us, actually demands of us, a degree of vulnerability to chaos in an effort to feed our spiritual growth, for wisdom, for purpose. Today we come together to experience a journey inward together. On Rosh Hashanah we recite the liturgy, Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world was born, or perhaps more precisely, today the world stands pregnant with possibility. The Torah seems to go out of its way to explain to us that the entire process of creation unfolded out of a sense of chaos. The Torah begins with the following two verses. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. When God began to create the heaven and the earth, ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu bechoshech al pnei tehom. The earth was tohu vavohu, an unformed void, a chaotic mess with darkness over the surface of the deep. V'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. And the Spirit of God swept over the water. Chaos and messiness have always manifested as the precursor to creation and progress and meaning. And it's a step that most of us don't enjoy. In the Guide for the Perplexed, Maimonides commented that our sages believed tohu vavohu to mean mourning and crying. Our sages clearly cast a negative light on chaos. We don't like feeling uninformed, unaware, or unsure. We enjoy feeling like experts, aware, in control. We control every aspect of our lives today, and we steer our experience toward comfort. We control the way we listen to music and consume entertainment, receive our news so that we're not presented with an unknown or challenged by an adversarial opinion. We've engineered our lives to feel comfortable at every moment. How many remote controls do you have in your living room right now? Some of us even have a universal remote that does everything but control the universe. If it's true that we prefer comfort and control as human beings, then it's true for Jews as well, except, like everything else, even more so. As a people, we value education and accomplishment, so much so that I know that right now I'm speaking to doctors of every field, attorneys of every specialization, educators dedicated to various abilities, financial experts of every strategy. We are a people whose expertise extends to everything. In synagogue, here in Shul, we come together at the beginning of the Jewish year to acknowledge that life is fragile. We confront profound truths, and some of them make us uncomfortable. We contemplate God and prayer, family and fertility, individuality and community. On Yom Kippur, we'll face absolute fragility in contemplating life and death. It's challenging and uncomfortable, and it's absolutely necessary. Synagogues around the world all claim to be welcoming and all synagogues claim to want to make you feel comfortable. I hope you enjoyed a warm welcome back to synagogue this morning. We'll continue to strengthen our culture of warmth and welcoming here at VBS. But comfort is actually not what brings us into this building. We're here because we're looking for meaning. It's in synagogue that we chant our people's language, in spite of the fact that most American Jews don't understand Hebrew, and we should chant in Hebrew. It's in synagogue that we speak of God more this morning than most of us do during the rest of the year, and we should speak of God. It's in synagogue where we're reminded that times moves faster than we'd like, and we know it because we look around the sanctuary and see all of those who are no longer physically present with us. None of that is comfortable. All of it is meaningful. In 2010, Dr. Brené Brown delivered a TEDx talk titled The Power of Vulnerability. Dr. Brené Brown is a research professor who studies courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. She's the author of 5 #1 New York Times bestsellers. Her TEDx lecture, The Power of Vulnerability, has been viewed by more than 58 million people. Brown explained that her research studied people who didn't feel worthy of love or belonging versus people who did feel worthy of relationship. She found that everyone who felt worthy of connection possessed 2 shared qualities: courage and vulnerability. Brown explained, and I quote, "They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, 'I love you' first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. They're willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought it was fundamental." Living comfortably should not be our goal in life. We all aspire to live a life of meaning. We acquire meaning through relationships and learning and personal growth. To achieve relationships and personal growth, vulnerability is a necessary component. To face life's challenges, we need courage. We need courage. Today, we need courage. What does Jewish courage look like in the face of vulnerability? In the prophetic book of Kings, society proves overwhelming for Elijah, and he runs away from the northern kingdom, down through the southern kingdom of Judah, through the Negev to a mountain called Horeb, otherwise known to us as Sinai. He entered a cave into the most secluded place imaginable, inside a deep cave inside of Mount Sinai. And it's there that Elijah utters the words, "Ani levadi," I am alone. And God answers him with the singular word, a single syllable, "Seh," come out. God tells Elijah, come out and face the world. Come stand vulnerable. And it's there that Elijah comes out and faces a mighty wind, and then he faces an earthquake, and then finally a fire. And after the fire, Elijah hears Kol Demama Daka, the soft, delicate voice of divinity, of courage, of conviction, of purpose. This is the reason why we believe that Elijah visits a child at the moment of circumcision, or why he visits us on Passover before a renewed sense of freedom, or why we sing of Elijah at Havdalah before we encounter the challenges of a new work week. We need to be reminded that a voice can bring us courage so that we can go out into the world with conviction and purpose. This is the voice of inspiration that spoke to Jacob when he laid down his head to sleep on the rock. It was the voice of destiny that spoke to Moses from inside the burning bush. All Jews have stood vulnerable at one time or another, and this is the voice that speaks to us all. Synagogue is here to help you hear it. We're all here to help one another regain the courage, to find our purpose, to seek meaning, to hear the quiet, soft, delicate voice of our collective destiny. These services are meant to inspire us to truly listen to the still, delicate voice within. We should not need to face this alone. We're not meant to live in individual, secluded caves. We're meant to live out our tradition together. I stand vulnerable before all of you today, humbled to admit that I arrive as the third senior rabbi at Valley Beth Shalom after a tradition of profound rabbinic excellence. I have to admit that I've spent the last several months listening to the brilliant high holiday sermons of Rabbi Schulweis and Rabbi Feinstein. It's a daunting challenge to follow them. And at the same time, this moment, seems like the dawn of a new beginning at Valley Beth Shalom and within the greater Los Angeles community. It's an exciting time, a challenging time, and a moment pregnant with possibility. After the last several years of pandemic and political strife, we're all emerging out of degrees of chaos together. Especially now in this restart, in this renewal, I think it's an imperative for the Jewish community to come together and recognize that sometimes we don't have all the answers. In 1980, Rabbi Harold Schulweis delivered a Yom Kippur sermon titled Accepting Our Vulnerability. Rabbi Schulweis declared, and I quote, that Rosh Hashanah is not Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is the celebration of strength. Yom Kippur is the commemoration of weakness. Rosh Hashanah is the celebration of independence. Yom Kippur is the commemoration of dependence. If we split them, then we have a half-truth. And there's nothing more deceitful than a half-truth. Since Rabbi Schulweis spoke those words from this bima 42 years ago, the world has changed, and fundamentally, we have remained the same. Constantly now, the world presents us with half-truths. Therefore, what we need now more than ever before is not only to acknowledge our vulnerability, but to practice our courage. In this case, courage does not mean stubbornness. Courage means an openness to vulnerability and a willingness to change the way we live our lives. We have to have courage to bring others close. We have to have courage to learn new ways forward. If we ever hope to bridge our fractured society, it's not by approaching our brothers and sisters on the other side of the aisle with certainty, but with courageous openness. If we ever hope to heal family strife, it's not going to be through stubborn will, but with courageous compassion. If we ever hope to create a relationship with God, it's not going to be through ego, but with courageous humility. A miracle occurs on Rosh Hashanah. A miracle. And it's not the creation of the world. Jews from every corner, every walk of life, every stream of ritual observance come together to hear the shofar blast. And the miracle is that for the briefest of moments, Jews, us, Jews, stand silent and listen. The blast of the ram's horn brings awe and timidity to a people who do not understand how to wait in line. Today, Yom Teruah, the day of blasting the shofar, should bring with it for us a sense of attentiveness. Our worship has changed. Our location has changed. Our language has changed. Our dress has changed. But the blast of the shofar is the same sound that we heard at Mount Sinai during God's revelation. It's the exact same sound that you heard last year and a few years ago. And it's the exact same sound that our grandparents heard and their grandparents heard generations before them. The shofar represents the sound of the eternal. It's the only announcement chime that silences us and forces us to listen. This year, I suggest we continue the practice of listening long after the chime of the ram's horn. I challenge us all to come to this place to find answers, not only this day, but many times throughout the year, to the eternal questions about finding meaning in our lives, about finding a sense of godliness amidst the darkness of the world, about finding a sense of peoplehood and family with other Jews here in Southern California, maybe whom we don't know yet. Never once have I ever regretted plunging into the chaos of an El Al flight. That chaos that we bring on one another, that's all of the generations of tumult and vulnerability of our people trapped in a metal cylinder at 35,000 feet. When I disembark and walk with my feet in the section of the Mediterranean that belongs to our people, Israel teaches me how to walk with courage and pride in a neighborhood that is soaked with vulnerability. To stand at the terminal and turn right is to admit with simple humility that I belong with all of them, that I belong with all of you. To gather here today is to admit that in fact we belong together. Through the chaos and the bickering and the kvetching, we all stand vulnerable together. Let's celebrate that. Let's endeavor to follow a spiritual journey together. We are a large, dysfunctional, complicated, ancient family. I stand here vulnerable before all of you. I invite you to join me and do the same. Because you, the Jewish people, I love you. I'm willing to say it first. I love you, even if you don't always say it back. Shana Tova.